positions at Beacon, including the program manager for Families Moving Forward. Her personal experience is a mother of 6, a daughter, 4 sons, and a nephew, 6, and has been part of the motivational backbone behind her devotion to ensuring the safety and the progress in the community she is a part of. She is a 3rd-generation Black Muslim woman. Sakina's family transitioned from the Nation of Islam in 1975 to the Orthodox Islam that she currently practices today. Sakina holds a bachelor's degree in business and a master's in marriage family therapy. She has 13 years of experience in the U.S. Army. Her faith community, Masjid An-Nur, is part of the Beacon Collaborative. Sakina was born in Phoenix and raised in Golden Valley, Minnesota. I'm going to hand it over to Andrea, and Andrea is going to tell us a little bit about what Families Moving Forward is and her involvement.
Yeah, my bio isn't quite as impressive as Sakina's, but I think a lot of you know what the Families Moving Forward program is, but I'll tell you a little bit about it before I start, just in case you don't know. There are about 60 faith congregations throughout the Twin Cities, Hennepin County, Scott, Carver County, and they all pair together and house homeless families for a week at a time within their congregations. So we started doing this program. We are just going to be beginning our 6th year here at Trinity, which time flies. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about my background and how I became interested in this. So I got a degree from the University of Minnesota in housing and design, did my internship at a Section 8 public housing property in St. Paul, and cried pretty much every single day. So I did not end up pursuing a career within my major because I don't think I could handle it at that age. So a few years after I graduated from college, I moved to Chicago. And, homelessness in Chicago is a whole different deal. And early on, I remember I was walking down a block in downtown Chicago with a lot of people living on the street asking for money. And my coworker said to me, "Oh, don't worry about it. Pretty soon you won't even notice them." And I remembered thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I never want to be that person that doesn't notice them. So I went on with my job and, volunteered in soup kitchens here and there a little bit. And it wasn't until I lived in my last apartment in Chicago and I would walk past this convenience store every day and I would see the same man. I don't know his name, we never spoke, but one day I just stopped and I said, "Do you want to get something to eat?" And he was only allowed to go in the store because I was with him. I mean, we walked in and they're like, hold their hand up to not let him in. And I said, "He's with me." And so that first day got coffee and a donut. The next day picked out a sandwich. And so I did it whenever I could do it. And I finally felt I can't help everybody, but I can help this one guy. So he was kind of my guy. I would travel for work and I would tell him, "I'm going to be out of town for a while, so, I'll be back." So I did this for a few years, eventually moved away, got married, had kids, was busy raising my family, and didn't do a whole lot of volunteering outside of, for my kids. So it was back when Pastor Brian and Kim, I did a meet and greet coffee at my house to have them meet some of my friends. Great day, great conversation. Brian's on his way out the door. I mean, literally, the door is going to close. And he turns around and said, "Is there anything you would like to see happen at Trinity that we're not doing now?" And I said, "My dad does this program at his church called Families Moving Forward. My mom does this program at her church in North Carolina called Family Promise, and I think it might be a good thing for our church. And, you know, I don't think I even knew what happened to me then, because pretty soon, here we are. And so we will start our 6th year next Sunday, and I think it's been a great program for our church. And I think, you know, my favorite part about this program is how multi-generational it is. And I've met more people, met Chuck and Janice, and, you know, that I never would have met and become friends with without this program. So I love the fact that we have our middle school and our high school youth are involved. It takes between 80 and 100 people volunteering their time or money or donations to pull off a successful week of hosting. So there are a lot of opportunities. I was just checking out the sign-up sheets before I came in, and we're doing pretty well. But there are still a few little holes out there. So if you're interested in taking a look and asking any questions, I would be happy to answer any questions. So that's kind of my backstory, and I will pass it over to Sakina.
Hello. Wait, I don't think my mic's on. I usually just speak. Can you hear me? Oh, it does work. Okay, well, I guess I'll just be speaking then. Well, thank you, Andrea and Jerry, for inviting me, and everyone for you welcoming me into your space. Again, my name is Sakina Mujahid, the Associate Director of Shelter Operations. I oversee the ins and outs of the Families Moving Forward program, like Jerry mentioned, in Minneapolis and Chaska, that service Hennepin County and Scott and Carver. I've been with Beacon for a little over 7 years in several different facets, but I'm very proud that all have been with Families Moving Forward. So I would like to begin by saying how I came to this work. For 10 years now, I've been a survivor of domestic abuse from my ex-husband. Due to this situation, I was faced with the challenge of now being the primary caregiver for 4 children at that time. In a matter of 2 months, of him leaving, I received a notice of eviction, struggled with providing food for the children, my car began to break down, and almost all the utilities were on the verge of being shut down. My abuse was primarily psychological and emotional, to where I found myself depressed to the point where I did not want to live anymore. By the grace of God, I knew and felt that I had a purpose greater than this situation I was in, because I was so blessed to be connected to many resources within my own community. These blessings gave me the strength and motivation to get up and do something more to sustain and provide for my children and many others. From that day forward, I made a promise to myself, to my children, and to anyone else. Made a promise to myself to not let this happen to another woman, child, or family by any way I can. By working to find the necessary resources for those in crisis, by working to empower those feelings like they cannot push forward, and by working with individuals who provide services to do it with the right skills and ways to those seeking will not lose their dignity by asking for help. In one of Jesus' most famous statements, it says that you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. This is an important idea of the faith, and it's also important to me in my idea of faith. In the Quran, it says in a verse 971, the believers, men and women, are protectors of one another. They enjoy what is just and forbid what is evil. They observe regular prayers and practice regular charity and obey Allah and His messenger. On them will Allah pour His mercy, for Allah is exalted in power and wise. As people of faith, we are called to respond to our neighbors, and that is what we get to do every day through our Beacon's Families Moving Forward program. And that is what you do as you host families in your congregation. Beacon is a powerful collaborative of over 90 congregations, united in action to create homes and advance equitable housing. By leveraging our collective power, we develop affordable housing, shelters families, and work to impact housing policies. Our focus is on families, adults with a disability, young adults, and others who make less than $25,000 a year. and those who are experiencing homelessness. I am so honored to be able to talk to you today about certain portions of that. I'm not sure if you know, almost 3,200 children are neighbors who don't have a home tonight. But we, people of faith, are working to make sure that some of those children do have shelter for the night. Just a quick overview about who Beacon is. The story of Beacon started with congregations responding to the need they saw around them. Some congregations came together in the early 1990s to provide shelter to the rising number of people experiencing homelessness in our community. They opened the doors to give families a warm place to stay at night and the help they needed to find a way back to stability of a home. Other congregations felt they were being called to build affordable housing for people with the lowest income, many of who found themselves sleeping on the streets. They built quality apartment buildings in their neighborhood, creating homes that were affordable. Both groups took risks to put their faith in action. They eventually merged to become Beacon, where communities of faith are still responding, empowered to be housing the needs we have around us. I invite you to learn more about Beacon and the work we do and how we from our different faiths are coming together to put love into action. We are holding our quarterly congregation convening January 29th at Beth Shalom, and there should be flyers that are around here that have more information for you and other ways you can get involved with Beacon. Thank you. And there you go. And then I guess we're doing a Q&A.
Do you want to take a look at that family, and maybe you know them, Andrea, too. Do you want to talk a little bit about them?
Sure, I can talk about them. Yeah, whichever ones you post up.
Yeah.
Sure, this is a family. They came to us, and they have been housed roughly about 2 months. They moved out December 1st, and they were with us for about 3 months or so. They are a blended family. None of these are his children, but he treats them as if they are his own, obviously. She was struggling, and they were struggling while they were in our program. She actually had to go to do emergency surgery while she was in our program for, what was it? Something.
Was it appendectomy?
Something. I can't remember off the top of my head, but she had to do emergency surgery, and that's when they really started working even more so as a family. As many of you know, that there's different barriers to the men being in the household, especially as African Americans. There's different barriers. So he was able to stay within the family, work really hard, and just really, we love the fact when we get dual parents, because it's really talking to all those different, debunking all those different systemic imbalances that are out there.
I'm going to go back there and do it.
You're going to what?
I'm going to forward them myself back here.
Oh,
there we go.
Yep, this is a single dad. Him and his children have been with us quite some time. And what happened when they came to us, they're still with us. What happened is that they reunited. So because, again, the stigma that's out there is that men shouldn't be in shelters, they're able to do for themselves. So when they were evicted from their place or lost their housing, he had to separate himself from the children. So he put his children into a youth shelter, and then he went to a singles men's shelter because they couldn't be together. So from that youth shelter, they reached out to, because they're one of our partnering, the Link, and so they reached out to us and asked if we have any space, and just right when they called us, we did have an opening, so we were able to bring that unit back together. And so they've been with us. He has been recently approved, just recently, to have a long-term housing, and his daughter, the one on the left here, she has leukemia, and so she is also struggling. So that's why he really could not work when she was diagnosed, and so just struggling to do that for him. But they're well on the way, homeschool children. They're getting A's and knocking it out, and so now they should be having housing by February 1st. Is that it? This is our family in Chaska. They came to us roughly about 3 months after being here. They came from San Antonio, Texas, and they came here because it was a challenge for the father at the time to be stable in Texas. She rejoined, so he came here with just him and his children. He was supposed to be with his brother, and his brother said after being here for a couple of weeks, he said, I can't have you in my house anymore. The landlord stated, your children are too loud, you got to get out. So they came to us because of that. The plan that they had was for them to stay here with their brother, get resettled, and then be on their way. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. They came to us. And she didn't join us until after about 2 months because her mother was sick in Texas. And so she was able to get her mother stable and then rejoin us. So Lisa and Keith and their family are still stable. They moved out maybe about 1.5 years ago, and they're very stable and still. And I just saw her a couple months ago, and she's doing well. So, any other questions? Go ahead.
We're gonna go. There's just a real short video, Sakina.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, with this family, I think.
Okay.
The active family, we have 3 small children, ages 7, 8, and 10. We like to go on nature walks. Our kids are very outdoorsy, so they enjoy all things nature.
After losing my job of 18 years, it was a pretty tough pill to swallow.
He was living with his mother, with our 3 children. I was living with my brother. We weren't all under the same household.
With our children's future in mind, we knew that we needed to do something.
He has a brother that moved here to Minnesota from San Antonio about 12 years ago, and they love it. They just kind of stayed and had kind of suggested maybe that we make the move to Minnesota. And so we came up here hoping for the best and for the chance for all of us to be under the same roof again and be a family again. When he brought the kids up here, he was originally going to stay with his brother, but that fell through.
It was an absolute nightmare being here with my 3 children and not having a place to go. For 3 weeks, we were in dire straits. We'd stayed at a friend's house, my brother's, for about a week. Stayed in various motels, thankfully to the Chaska Police Department. Being homeless is probably the ultimate worst feeling I've ever had in life. I've never been scared. I've never been so frightened in all of my life.
Families moved forward, got us into Carver Crossing Apartments. And we've been in Carver Crossing Apartments for a year.
It saved our relationship. It saved our children's lives with us. And ultimately, it rescued a family off of the street that was in need.
Things are so much more positive, and I don't have the tremendous weight on my shoulders of, the guilt of not being under the same roof with my children anymore, and I have so much positive outlook on life now.
Families Moving Forward has given us an opportunity to not only have a life here in Minnesota, but to have a life that we can be proud of. They've given us so much without asking anything in return.
So how many of you know about Families Moving Forward or have volunteered a little? So you get the idea. For us at church, Jill and Andrea and Sakina really do this. We switched the fellowship hall downstairs into the classrooms. And then Kathy Halloran comes in with the Boy Scouts, and they make beds. They have mattresses, they bring out pillows, linens, and make that into as cozy as a possible place you can be. The families usually arrive on a Sunday night. They get here with their things. They're dropped off by a bus, And then they get settled, have a meeting. I'm usually here on Sundays, so I can speak a little bit to this. And then they have dinner, which is provided by members. And it's just kind of a fun time to get to know the families and learn a little bit. Although there are certainly guidelines about what we do as volunteers. I mean, we don't ask questions, just take it as it is, and usually end up playing with the kids and doing something because they're kids and they want to run around. After dinner, we tend to go to the gym and play for a while, and really then it's bedtime. They have pretty rigorous schedules. They get up early. They have to be at the bus by 6:30. And so they're out of here. We have members staying overnight just to be on hand in case they need anything goes wrong. And what happens is the kids go to school, and the adults go to work. And so they don't get back here until, again, it's dinner time and dark. And again, so it's a rigorous schedule. I would be exhausted. They have to uphold the standards, and you may have questions about that as we talk, but what I heard you say is that you need to make $25,000 or less or be homeless. Is that a bit of it? And so, being homeless right now, especially with our temperatures, my heart just drops for that because it is freezing out. And there are all different kinds of people that have come through and that we're honored to have. Our church does it 2 times, it just varies. Usually it's not in the summertime, it's usually the fall and then the winter. And do you guys have some questions? Thanks. We're live streaming this, so we always try to get it on the mic. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
How does a family become part of families moving forward? Is there some criteria for that?
Yes, there is. So right off the basics would be they have to have a child underneath the age of 18. They have to be homeless. And then for our Hennepin area, they have to be in the Hennepin area. That's our must be this microphone. In the Hennepin area, our priority goes to Hennepin, and then in the Scott and Carver, they have to be work, lived, or children go to school in that area. Those are the basics of coming into the program. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Program also helping them to find a home or an apartment?
Yeah,
and
good
maybe
question.
in some cases helping them find a job?
Yes, very good question. So we have case managers. We have 3 case managers that work with them on a daily basis. So if they don't have a job or they don't have housing or lined up for that, when they leave you guys, they come and spend the day from 7 to 5:30 with the case managers and working on a case plan to knock out different barriers, build resumes, and we connect with partners within the area. So we merge the workforce centers, things like that, to make sure they have employment and find out if they don't. I mean, is there some skills that we can pair up to try to help them build some skills or take classes for that?
How do the kids get to go to their schools? Do they get to stay in the schools they've always been in?
Yes. Yes, they do. Yep. So that's always one of those unique questions, so it's a good question. Yes. So the whole point of them leaving from here and to be at the program centers is that the buses can transport them and get them to wherever they are. Because of the state law, it's required for them to stay within their schools that they became homeless in. So
And
we work with the schools.
Do we rely on city buses, or do you
No,
own your own?
The schools are required to provide transportation because of the state McKinney-Vento law. So the school, whatever school that they became homeless in, is the school that would provide their transportation because of that. And so one of the questions that we always get asked is, why don't you send the buses to the congregations and they get picked up from there so they don't have to leave so early? Well, that's a lot of maneuvering, a lot of transport. So if we consider the program center as their hub or their home address for that period. So we're able to, no matter where congregation they are, that's why they have to be back at 7. so they can get picked up, for sure, and they stay in that school.
How many different families do you have in the program at any one time, and how long are they in the program typically?
Sure. So on any one given day, we have a total of 12 families, so 8 in the Hennepin area and 4 in the Southwest area. And then our average stay right now is 76.5 days, but because of the, yes, I do stats, sorry, is the economy, it's unfortunately they're staying a little bit longer past that 76. So they can stay up to almost 4 months, unfortunately.
What happens to the preschool children during the day?
Well, we run away from them. No, I'm just kidding. No. They are, so we are set up with Head Start in the Hennepin area called Project Secure. So that program is set up to support all of the shelters in Hennepin County. So they have just daycare for the children from 8 to 2 o'clock, 2:30 for the preschoolers or the even infants, so the parents can do what they need to do while they're in the shelters. And then parents also have a choice to be connected to any other daycare, and we'll help them get connected with that. But we have that set up for them right away.
I see one of our great volunteers here who helps with the kids a lot, Miss Van Buren. She is always there to lend a hand with the kids, and I just want to ask you why you like doing it.
I like doing it just because it brings so much joy to them just to have someone to play with, and like with any other kids, that's just kind of something, but with them it makes their whole day.
Mm-hmm.
And she will come night after night and just give of her time and just really hunker down with those kids, and it's so appreciated. And of course, you know, kids love other kids, especially older high schoolers. They just, they're all over them. So we actually try to schedule weeks where we know that the kids will be on regular schedules in Orono, so that that they can come and help, because it's a really important part of the program.
Wonderful.
And I know that there are sign-up sheets that are out in the narthex. I'm not sure how we're doing on them, but it's worth a check, because we can. Jill, do we have things we need?
First, I too want to say thank you to Andrea and everyone who volunteers with the program. If you haven't and you want to just give it a try, you can partner with someone. Talk to Andrea, talk to myself. There's opportunities still for overnight. There's opportunities for some meals and a couple other things, I think. But it's just a great way. You can even just come and give it a try one night. Dishwashing, laundry, linens, financial support. So there's a variety of ways. And I think I would say too, the biggest thing is just, I always say I'm just gonna come for like one night, or just, Andrea, I'll just check in and make sure, but I find myself here each night, and a lot of it is just developing the relationships with the parents and just sitting down and having a conversation. Just, you know, how was your day, what's going on, or not, you know, like, just talking about regular things. And I keep coming back and developing, and I know Andrea too, these become part of your family for the week too. And it can happen really to anyone at any time. And I think I'd also say too, we have families in Orono School. It's all over. It's just not, you think it's urban poverty and homelessness. It's in the suburbs, as Carver County has the site set up. But there are families in Orono that are homeless and struggling with their kids in school. So people are people, and they deserve the dignity and just to be acknowledged, and to be there. Everyone is just a person, and so.
Jill, you talked about coming and developing relationships. I was wondering, some of these families are there for, you said 3 or 4 months. And I was wondering, do we ever get repeats of the same family?
We have had once or twice some families. I would say maybe, Andrea, what do you think? Once or twice that we've had the same family from one hosting time to another. But that was probably 4 or 5 years ago, I think, when the stay was longer in the shelter program. But yeah, I recognize a family that was up in the photos, and we also heard at a luncheon a family that we had hosted a year and a half ago that had a video clip too that's available, and they're in housing, and so it's fun to reconnect. We saw them a couple months ago, and they're doing really well, and she was very resilient. So occasionally, I would say it's once or twice maybe, right? Yeah, so. And we check in with Sakina too, I think is the other thing, is just to kind of say, she knows that we are here to support any of the families that we have hosted or just in families in general in the program, and have made donations to the program, so.
Yeah, and then from time to time, we will ask about, donating furniture if there is a family that's moving into housing and can use some things. So those things go out in the bulletin or email, whatever.
Can I, so
please.
that family that you saw at the luncheon, she's due to get married. So I just want to mention that to you. Yeah, so she's excited, just sent me a picture of the ring. So, yeah, so good things, we appreciate it.
Hey, I wondered about your experience in the Army and how some of those skills that you've used in families moving forward.
Loud voice, structure. So all the different things that are very structured does come from that a little bit. But no, I think just being able to work with a different variety of individuals, from whether it be from the child all the way up to working with the congregations, I think that has been a very opening, or that's some of the skills that I have done with the military. But yeah, very orderly, my very, very loud voice. If anyone is coming through the center, towards the end of the day, you can hear me yelling and screaming to keep the place cleaned up a little bit before you leave. But also just, I think, the structure, I think, and then offering an open door policy for the families. Even though I'm like the hardest person, I'm the principal's office, basically, if they get in trouble or don't meet with the case managers on a regular basis, then that comes down, and they don't really like when I get into that different mode, so yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe not.
Okay. Once Sakina came to the program, I've learned a lot from her, and I now realize I've come full circle where the rules that you've set up are there for a reason, and that it really does work well if you do what Sakina says. Because you always feel that you want to do as much as you can for somebody, and that isn't always the best thing to do. We always wanted them to, like our church best, or at least feel very comfortable here, which I think we do. But you can also do that in a way without doing too much, so that the next week when they get to a different church, they're like, well, last week we got this and that, and this week now we don't get that. And so it really is helpful to the families to have the consistent set of rules, and that is what I've really learned from Sakina, and Jill and I both learned that one. And I want to tell my favorite story before I leave, and it just happened last time we hosted, and it was with Janice. Provided a lovely meal, as she usually does, and her pineapple cheesecake. But one of the women, at the very end, Janice was cleaning up and getting ready to leave, and she just hopped up and came over, hugged Janice, and said, "Thank you so much. That's the best food that I've had in a really long time." And I don't know. That's the kind of stuff, that's why I love to do this program, and that's what I mean about the multi-generational and getting everybody involved. And I never would have met Earl Swanson would come in at 80 years old and do the dishes. I never would have met Earl without this program. So that's one of my favorite things about the program. So.
We want to thank you for coming this morning, both Sakina and Andrea, and appreciate all the work you do and the tireless work that Jill puts in, and of course all of you volunteers. we will check that volunteer list for starting next Sunday. So thanks again. Thanks for coming to Shift.
Thank you.
Have a great day.